When people talk about the biggest lose-lose trades in NFL history, often the first thing that comes up, and rightfully so, is the infamous 2013 trade made between the Indianapolis Colts and the Cleveland Browns. In that trade, the Browns decided to offload running back Trent Richardson, their first-round pick out of Alabama just 1 year before, to the Colts in exchange for a first-round pick in 2014. The Colts needed some running back help after Vic Ballard was lost for the year with a torn ACL. And the Browns weren't crazy about Richardson after a 2012 season where, outside of scoring touchdowns, he didn't show a ton of burst or vision. And unfortunately for both sides, the trade turned out to be a massive bust, making both parties worse in the process. Trent Richardson was abysmal with the Colts, spending just 2 seasons with the organization and amassing 977 yards, with him being massively overweight and leaving the team without telling them, even resulting in him getting suspended for playoff games in 2014. For some perspective on how bad Richardson was with the Colts, from 2013 to 14, there were 25 players in the NFL to have at least 300 rushing attempts. Of those 25 players, 20 of them had at least 4 yards per carry, and 24 of them had at least 3.6 yards per carry. The one that didn't? Trent Richardson, who averaged an astonishingly low 3.1 yards per carry. He was that bad and that anemic. And as for the man that the Browns drafted with a pick they acquired from the Colts, yeah, that definitely didn't age poorly whatsoever. So I think it's fair to say that the Trent Richardson trade was a lose-lose trade. However, at the very least, you could say that Richardson played for the Colts and Manziel played for the Browns. The trade sucked for both sides, very clearly, but at least there were contributions for Richardson and Manziel, if ever so minimal. I cannot say the same about the trade involving this man right here, because to say that this trade made no sense whatsoever would be putting it lightly. And in this trade, there were truly no winners. Both sides were worse off as a result of it, and even if the stakes were admittedly lower than the Richardson trade, this still deserves consideration for the craziest lose-lose trade in NFL history, if only for how stupid it was on the surface for at least one of the parties. And more than 30 years later, this is the story behind one of the biggest lose-lose trades of all time. Make sure you hit that like button down below, subscribe, hype up that video, and turn on that notification bell, because we'll post every single day on here about the weird and the wacky history of the NFL, with stories like this one that you may not have heard of before. So if you like that sort of stuff and want to learn more, then this is definitely the place for you. Thanks in advance for liking and subscribing, and for hyping up the video, and for helping us grow this community. And with that in mind, let's talk about the trade made by the Carolina Panthers and the Kansas City Chiefs that was anything but the finest hour for the expansion team. But before I talk about the actual trade details themselves, we need some context to understand just who the Carolina Panthers wanted in the first place, as in this man right here that you've been watching this entire time. This is Tennessee quarterback Jerry Colquitt, and to say that the man did virtually nothing in college would be putting it lightly. Normally, when I talk about college prospects before the draft, I talk about all the accolades that they won and their numbers and how they're near the top of their school's history and whatnot. But I can't do that here with Colquitt. The reason? He lost a quarterback competition in 1992 and 1993 to Heath Shuler. And when he did enter the game on some package plays and on the occasional drive, he did not look the slightest bit accurate. Yes, he had good legs and had his moments, but he was incredibly raw. And there's a good reason why Shuler won the starting job, especially when you compare the two and their pocket presence. However, at the 1994 NFL Draft, Washington took Shuler with a 3rd overall pick, and Colquitt became the starting quarterback for the Volunteers. Colquitt's time as the starter lasted a grand total of 1 drive, as on the very first drive of the season against UCLA, Colquitt tore the ACL in his left knee and missed the rest of the season, leading to some random guy by the name of Peyton Manning to replace him. I don't know what happened to him. I've never heard of that name before this video. Anyways, by the time Colquitt's college career was done, he had thrown just 64 passes. For some perspective, Kerry Collins, who the Panthers chose with their first pick in the draft at number 5 overall, threw 657 passes in college and started and finished more than 1 game. So you had a super raw quarterback who had barely played and didn't look all that impressive when he was on the field. And the only reason it seemed to draft him was because he was an athletic player who needed some refinement. And maybe you could be the team to refine him and unlock his potential. But with a lack of playing time and the ACL injury potentially destroying his explosiveness and destroying what made him a possible threat in college in the first place, Colquitt seemed like a guy that you shouldn't touch in the draft. But the Carolina Panthers, against their better judgment, thought otherwise. They worked Colquitt out and loved what they saw, and they felt as though they needed to have him on their team, which is odd if you think about it from the perspective of how they approached the offseason. They signed Frank Reich in free agency, the longtime Bills backup quarterback who still seemed to have stuff left in the tank. They drafted Kerry Collins with their first pick, the Penn State man who led the entire Big Ten in passing touchdowns and passing yards and was the Maxwell Award winner in 1994. And in the expansion draft conducted 2 months earlier, they took New York Jets quarterback Jack Trudeau, a veteran quarterback who started 12 games over the previous 3 seasons. There were plenty of times where teams draft 2 quarterbacks in the same class. We saw that with New England in 2024 with Drake May and Joe Milton. We saw that with Indianapolis in 2012 with Andrew Luck and Chandler Harnish. And we saw that with Washington in 2012 with Robert Griffin III and Kirk Cousins. And other teams have also done it. But it usually is twofold, where number 1, you don't have any quarterbacks on the roster, and number 2, you don't have to give up draft capital. Drafting a 4th-string quarterback seems absurd, especially when you're an expansion team and presumably have a ton of holes to fill. Drafting a 4th-string quarterback and giving up assets to do it? Even nuttier. Alas, the Panthers, with the help of general manager Bill Polian, decided to call up the Kansas City Chiefs and trade for pick number 191. The Panthers would give up a 6th-round pick in 1996, which the Chiefs presumably thought would be near the top of the round, seeing as no expansion team ever had a winning record or had any sort of success in their first year. And in return, the Panthers would get pick number 191 near the tail end of the 6th round. And with pick number 191, the Carolina Panthers took the man they've been watching this entire time, Tennessee quarterback Jerry Colquitt. One writer for the Winston-Salem Journal summed this up best when he said, "Why trade up at that point? Why draft a quarterback at all when you already spent your first pick a day earlier to take your quarterback of the future in Penn State's Kerry Collins? Finally, why draft a guy who blew out his left knee on the first series of his senior season and hadn't played but a handful of downs his entire collegiate career?" And yeah, all of these are extremely valid questions. In fact, one of the men asking these questions happened to be none other than Jerry Colquitt himself, who said, "I was kind of surprised to be taken by Carolina because I know they also have Frank Reich, who showed he can play with the Bills, and Kerry Collins is a great quarterback. I didn't think they had any problems there, and I didn't know if they even needed me." Always a good sign when your own draft pick is wondering why on earth you, as the employer, drafted them. However, that's where we were. The Chiefs gave up pick number 191, and the Panthers used it to draft a man who would presumably enter the season as the fourth-string quarterback, at a time where it wasn't exactly uncommon for teams to carry only two guys. To the shock of no one, Colquitt did not make the roster, so trading up not only didn't make any sense at the time, but made no sense in hindsight either. He wasn't even one of the last cuts made, as Colquitt didn't survive the cut down to 65 players. Jerry Colquitt never played a single game in the NFL, although he was on the roster for the Frankfurt Galaxy of the World League in 1996, despite never playing a game for them. So this pick was a bust, and it was definitely a loss on the part of the Panthers. A draft pick failing to make the roster is a waste. A draft pick failing to make the roster after you traded up and gave up future assets to get him is an even bigger waste. So that raises the ultimate question. The Panthers completely wasted their trade up and drafted an injury-prone quarterback that they didn't need, that was never going to make the roster, and that barely played in college. What did the Chiefs do with their end of the bargain? Well, you'd think going into the 1995 season that after the trade that netted the Panthers this man you've been watching in Jerry Colquitt, the Chiefs would get an extremely high pick in the 6th round. The Panthers were an expansion team in 1995, and expansion teams typically stink to the surprise of no one. Heck, the last time the NFL expanded, in 1976, the Buccaneers were winless and went 0-14, and the Seahawks were 2-12, with one of the wins coming against the Buccaneers, meaning that the two expansion teams combined to win a grand total of one game against teams that were not formed that year. However, the Chiefs must have been surprised when that 6th-round pick that they were getting in 1996 turned out to be pick number 176 overall instead of a pick in the 160s, as the Panthers finished the year 7-9, bouncing back after an 0-4 start to give themselves a fighting shot at the playoffs in December against all odds. It was by far the best record for any expansion team since the NFL AAFC merger, as the Chiefs' gamble did not exactly pay off. Usually, if you're making a trade for a future pick, you'll get a round ahead, so giving up a 6th-round pick this year would net you a 5th-round pick next year. The Chiefs did not do that in the trade with this man right here in Jerry Colquitt. They thought the Panthers pick would come out to a 5th-round pick, and it did not play out like that. But who cares? It's only a couple of slots. As long as the player they got was good, then it wouldn't matter. Alas, he was not. Because the man that they drafted was this man right here, Pitt wide receiver Dietrich Jells. Unlike Colquitt, Jells actually had a very good collegiate career and was one of the better receivers in the nation, even leading the Big East in receiving yards in 1992 when he amassed over 1,091 yards, which also ranked inside the top 10 of the entire NCAA. By the time Jells' career with Pitt was over, he had 160 receptions for 3,003 yards and 25 touchdowns. He even had a game against West Virginia in the Backyard Brawl in 1994, where against their biggest rival, he had 225 yards, which was and still is the school record for most receiving yards by a Pitt player in a game. And his 91-yard touchdown against Rutgers in 1992 was the longest passing play in Pitt history at the time it happened, before Kenny Pickett broke the record at the 2019 Quick Lane Bowl with a 96-yard completion. By the time that Jells was done playing for Pittsburgh, Jells' 1992 season of 1,091 yards was the most in school history. His 3,003 receiving yards was the most by any player in school history. And today, he's just one of 3 players, alongside Tyler Boyd and Antonio Bryant, to cross the 3,000-yard mark with the school. His 160 receptions was the most in school history at the time, and his 25 receiving touchdowns was the most in school history, which to this day has only been topped by Antonio Bryant and Hall of Fame receiver Larry Fitzgerald. Unlike Colquitt, Jells actually had some production at the college level, and with the Chiefs needing some help at receiver after a 1995 season where they ranked 25th out of 30 teams in passing yards, and where their leading receiver, Willie Davis, had just 527 yards receiving, which ranks 71st in the entire NFL, they figured that Jells could potentially provide an immediate impact, as could their 5th-round pick that year, wide receiver Joe Horn. However, guess what? Dietrich Jells did not play a single snap with the Chiefs. He would play in the NFL for a little bit, playing 2 seasons with the New England Patriots in 1996 and 1997, and playing 2 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles in 1998 and 1999. But for the Chiefs, this man right here would not play a single snap, as he was cut before the end of the 1996 preseason. If you're doing the math at home and figuring out all of the calculations, this meant that the Kansas City Chiefs gave up a draft pick in 1995 that could have potentially helped them, and did it for a future pick in 1996, and that pick did not end up playing 1 snap for the team. Meanwhile, the Carolina Panthers gave up a draft pick in 1996 to acquire a 4th-string quarterback, and that pick did not end up playing 1 snap with the team. You can't even debate who won the trade, because they're both losers. Anytime you make a trade where you get objectively worse because you lose assets and you get players who play 0 snaps with you from those assets, your trade sucks. From an asset perspective, was this the biggest lose-lose trade of all time? Probably not. A 6th-round pick that busts and another 6th-round pick that busts, at the end of the day, aren't a big deal. But it's insane asset management nonetheless, especially on the Panthers' part with a 4th-string quarterback with a bad injury history. It's hard to make a trade worse than this, where both teams get worse and don't even get 1 snap out of any of their players, not even on special teams. The Panthers got nothing out of Colquitt, and the Chiefs got nothing out of this man right here in Jells. The Panthers lost, the Chiefs lost, everyone lost. End of discussion. Because if someone told you that every trade has to have a winner and a loser, just know after this video that that person was lying to you. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.